Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, the bad boy of the Lee Summit Community Theater, my brother Mike.
That's right. They got real. Those squares got real ticked off with my edgy, drug-addled portrayal of one Peter Pan. So, what if you can't handle how gritty and real I am? Then don't cast me, Myrtle. All right,
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
I think it was the unclothed scene you just added, you shoehorned in there.
It was
That
very
really,
tasteful.
Peter
The,
Pan. Yeah, well, Peter Pan, not an adult,
the
so
first word is tasteful. Okay.
is tasteful. It is tasteful. Okay. Yes, Mike is a bastion of the community theater. It puts on some wonderful productions. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll wonder why you spent $4 on that ticket. But it's great. On this week's episode, we'll break down a dung pile of a week. That's how I'm describing it. Finding new ways to describe bad weeks for the Royals takes time and energy and thought. So I'm going with a dung pile of a week from the boys in blue. We'll answer some listener questions during our spotlight segment, and we'll preview the week ahead, which I'm sure will be better. Okay, I'm sure of that. But first, Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy. For one-on-one personalized physical therapy, we choose All In Physical Therapy. They took excellent care of our mother after surgery left her with pain and limited mobility in her arm. She loves to work out, be active.
As a child, she earned pocket money by bending rebar with her bare hands.
That's what she did back in the 20s or whenever she was a kid to make money. The excellent specialized care she got at All In Physical Therapy had her back to being active in no time.
I'm pretty sure I saw her flip a Subaru by herself after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. She was a solo riot, just Super Bowl riot all on her own.
Flipping them. It was great. All In Physical Therapy knows how to help athletes recover, athletes like Mom. It's owned and operated by Lee Summit's own Tommy Freevert, a former Arena League football player, Northwest Missouri State Bearcat, and a hell of a guy. They have offices in both Blue Springs and Lee Summit, so give them a call to go see what they're into. I've lost my spot in the ad. Tell your go over get over there to work with Tommy. Tell your doctor you want to do your physical therapy with the best of the best at All In Physical Therapy. To learn more, give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300, or visit their website at allin-pt.com. That's allin-pt.com. We'll start our review of last week with roster news. There was some significant roster news last week. In fact, some news that some of us have been waiting for quite a while now. The Royals went ahead and made it official and designated Hunter Dozier for assignment. If you don't know what that means, that just means that basically they cut him, if you want to go by the simple parlance. He has since cleared waivers and is now a free agent. Anybody can sign him for anything. It's up to them. Mike, what are your thoughts on the end of the Hunter Dozier era, or what is presumably the end of the Hunter Dozier era here in Kansas City?
I think it's good for both sides in a sense. You never want to see somebody lose their job, but the Royals, these are guaranteed contracts. So Hunter Dozier is going to get all that money if he wants it. And he needs a new start. If he wants to continue on in baseball, he needs to be hearing stuff from other people besides the Royals organization, because what he's been producing in the last couple of years is not major league ability. And so maybe he can turn it around, and I hope he gets that opportunity. But the Royals had to move on. You and I mean, we've been saying they should have moved on years ago. A lot of people have. And so it's nice to see that, guys like Maikel Garcia are going to get more chances. Perhaps a Samad Taylor is going to be able to come up at some point because of this. But you have Nicky Lopez, you have Garcia, you have Bobby Witt Jr., you have Matt Duffy, who's hit much better than him. Where were the at-bats going to come for Hunter Dozier? There was no point in continuing to even have him as a bench player, because you want your bench players to be flexible defensively, and he was a negative defensively. So good for both sides. I hope he lands on his feet, or if he wants to just live out his days with his family, nothing wrong with that. Hunter Dozier, you earned that money in one way or another. Get it, spend it, spend time with your family, have a great life.
Yeah, at least he got his money. That's a good thing for him. I mean, it is nice, I think, that the Royals were willing to move on so quickly from him. I think in years past, they would have just held on to him until the trade deadline ended, essentially, and nobody wanted him. And so, it'd be one of those things where they just gave him another 150 plate appearances, just letting him sort of languish there. We have seen some guys like Ryan O'Hearn and others go on to have at least find a niche in Major League Baseball. So perhaps Hunter Dozier will be able to do that. I don't know, but I was pretty confident it wasn't going to work out here with the Royals. The hard part for Hunter Dozier is it's such a tiny eye of a needle he has to thread to be a successful major leaguer. He has to hit so well because he is not at all useful defensively. And so he has to hit really, really well. I'm not entirely sure if he'll be able to do that. If maybe it'll be in a real platoon role of some sort where he's only hitting against lefties or something like that. But up to this point, we really haven't seen it from him. Hopefully, he has a shot to do better somewhere else. The Royals got some real positive news on the roster front. Drew Waters returned from the injured list this week. We haven't seen him since the very earliest days of spring training when he hurt himself. I believe that was an oblique injury. He has gone through rehab starts. He has been down in AAA. Now he is back in the major leagues and made a couple of starts for the Royals this week. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Drew Waters back in this lineup and helping the Royals win some ball games?
Yeah, it was an oblique thing. And then while he was in his rehab start, there was a little bit of a back thing too. So good to see him back and healthy. I'm excited to see him because I feel like he's got more offensive potential than Kyle Isbell does. I don't know that he'll ever be the defender that Isbell is, but he is he can be a good defender in center. Plus he's a switch hitter, which I like a lot. He's got pop. The real question will be, can he keep a consistent approach going moving forward with the Braves? You know, he had a lot more minor league time with the Braves than he did with Kansas City. And so in the Braves organization, they thought not enough of him to, let's put it this way. They took a sandwich round pick, a compensatory pick, instead of Drew Waters. They traded that for him. So they, thought that perhaps that approach was never going to come around. If you can keep a consistent approach and keep those strikeout numbers down, you have a really good offensive piece to put in there. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table in a more extended look than what we got last year.
Yeah, I am worried about that. Him swinging too much. I'm worried that he's more of a free swinger than we really need, which is the story for so many of the hitters in this lineup right now. But he's a guy who does have that upside, a lot of potential, a lot of athleticism, a lot of power speed combo, and if he can find a way to walk at a significant clip and not strike out too much. I mean, he can be up in the 25% range as a strikeout rate. He can't be up in the 30 to 35% range. That's going to be too much of striking out for a guy like Drew Waters because he's got some pop, but he's not going to hit 30 home runs in a season. And so, he needs to be a little bit more disciplined at the plate. Let's hope he can do that. He's had some decent games since he's been back. I know he had a 2-hit game in there somewhere. And so hopefully he can keep that consistent approach, find ways to get on base, and be another guy in this lineup who just lengthens it a little bit, gets them a little more depth 1 through 9 in their lineup. Another guy who returned from the IL this week, another guy who's been highly anticipated since spring training, Daniel Lynch returned from the injured list. He has not made a start at all in Major League Baseball during the regular season. He started quite a bit in spring training, but was hurt in one of his final spring training outings and had to go on the IL with a, Mike, do you remember what Lynch was down with? I can't even remember at this point.
Oh, boy, shoulder. It was a shoulder.
Some sort of shoulder issue. Yeah. People were getting excited because his last AAA rehab start, he looked really, really good. Came out today and pitched really well, or pretty well. He was solid today. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Lynch back into this rotation?
Well, if we'd have gotten any starting pitcher back in the rotation, I would have been excited because we got 3. We have 3 pitchers in our starting rotation. And so getting Lynch back was great. I still think there's probably some stuff he could have worked on in AAA, but watching him today, it's very obvious that some of the coaching things have gotten in there because he mixed it up a lot more with his pitches. He was more aggressive in the zone. Now, as you saw with the very first pitch of the game, which went right down the middle and some guy crushed for a double. So at times that he will leave pitches right in the heart of the zone. And then that can be a little bit scary, especially when he starts facing better lineups, which we'll see kind of down the road. But, if you had the choice between walking guys and being aggressive in the zone, I'll take being aggressive in the zone all the time because with his slider playing a little bit better and the change was very good today. We try and work around that fastball because I think there's still a lot of work to do on that pitch, but I think you can maybe see a little bit of progress. If anything, it's in the plan that he has when he gets up there and the aggressiveness. I don't know if his stuff has gone up all that much, except for maybe a little bit with the slider. But it was good to see him back out there, and I have to think you chalk this up as a plus for him for his first start back.
Yeah, if anything, it's that he's throwing that slider harder, and you can see that they're going with a plan for him that's like, what we're going to do to increase your stuff is not increase its movement, we're going to increase its velocity. And so early in the game, he's throwing 94, 95 at the top of the zone with his fastball. He's throwing 88 to 90 with his slider. As the game went on, those pitches started to slow down.
Yeah.
You started to see it. And I don't know if that's because he needs more time to stretch out, or what, but it could just be that, hey, they're like, give us five. I think he's going to be a guy where they're like, give us 5 and we'll get you out of there, but give us 5 solid innings, And so he went out today. Yeah. The slider changeup combo was really tough for guys to hit because his slider looked good, his changeup looked really good, and he was throwing the fastball up in the zone. You could see that more often than not, he was making an effort to throw that fastball up, and guys had trouble with it. Now I say that, but one guy took a pitch that was 6 inches above the strike zone and almost hit it out of the ballpark. It ended up hitting off the top of the wall and bouncing back in for an RBI double. But that's not on Lynch. The guy did something crazy. And kudos to him, I guess. But I thought he looked pretty solid today. Had an inning where he really struggled, but was able to sort of rally and get out of that inning. And, it didn't become a blow up, and that's good. And so he's the one who really gave them a chance today and ultimately led to a win. You see from the game today, you see what it means to have a starting pitcher who can just keep you in the game, right? Like if you can just keep a team in the game, you give them a chance to get past their other team starter, to run into a pitcher who's not having their night, right? Like it's weird because we don't see that very often. We have too many starters who are giving up 5, 6 runs in the game. And then you're, okay, well, maybe we rally and score a ton. Who knows? But it's a lot tougher when the game is all out of hand in the third.
And especially he was going up against Mackenzie Gore's not, an all-star in the league right now, but he was very good today. I was really impressed with Mackenzie Gore. And Lynch is kind of going up against that. He kept his cool, even though the Royals weren't scoring or hitting anything, and was able to go 5. I was really worried in that 5th inning, though, when he's putting up 91-mile-an-hour fastballs, and the 88-mile-an-hour slider that you saw early in the game is now down to like 85. You're like, wait a second. Luckily, he was able to get out of it. But yeah, I think we call this an encouraging first step for Daniel Lynch and hope that we see more as we go.
Yeah, a couple other roster moves we won't get into too much, but Nate Eaton was optioned down to AAA, and Josh Taylor was placed on the 15-day injured list with shoulder impingement. It is it's catching, Mike. It is a contagious disease, this shoulder impingement, because Brad Keller had it. Now Josh Taylor has it. Who knows who's going to have it next? You might want to just stay out of that locker room.
Oh,
ow. Stay out of that locker room. Yeah. Your shoulder's been impinged since 1998. Okay. The record on the field last week was a pretty dismal 2-4, and it was actually almost 1-5. They came back and won the late today, but that brings their Royals overall record to 16-38, second worst record in Major League Baseball. So
thanks Oakland A's.
Yeah, thanks guys. They're on an 11-game losing streak, by the way.
Yes.
So it was not a good week for the Royals. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Detroit Tigers and the Washington Nationals, 2 teams that are nothing special, honestly. 2 teams that are not probably going to make the playoffs, either one of them. But if you need a silver lining, they didn't lose any of those games by more than 3. They were kind of in a lot of them. They got back a couple of guys like Drew Waters and Daniel Lynch, so that's good on the injury front. Maybe that'll hopefully give them a boost moving forward. Mike, what were your thoughts about last week as a whole?
There were some real positives in spots. Bobby Witt Jr. looked real. I think a lot of his at-bats just have looked better in this past week. And we really saw even today, like I said today Mackenzie Gore was so good. Bobby Witt Jr. actually got up 3-0 against Mackenzie Gore. And I think you mentioned it this morning on the Twitter Spaces with Alex Duvall. If you didn't get a chance to catch that this week, make sure you guys catch those. But you said sometimes you just have to tip your cap to a pitcher if the hitter gets up 2-0 or 3-0, and then they come back and throw 3 perfect pitches. That happened today in a Bobby Witt Jr. at bat. He got up 3-0 against Mackenzie Gore, and Gore just threw 3 really good pitches. And there's nothing you can do. It's okay to strike out that way, guys. We have to start realizing that. And actually, Garcia did it today too. I think he ended up being up 2-0, and then Gore came back with 3 really, really good pitches. But watching those at bats and seeing some of it pay off in that game where the Royals got down 7 against the Nationals and Bobby Witt Jr. had 2 home runs and a double and a single. He went 4 for 5 with 5 RBI. Like that, those kind of at bats can lead to those kind of days. And so I want him to understand that. I want him to see that. I want this to just become who Bobby Witt Jr. is. Now, with that, and the Lynch start was somewhat encouraging, and Waters coming back and has had a good game or two, but you lost 2 series, one to the Tigers and one to the Nationals. At least the National, I mean, neither one of those teams are really even trying to win. If they were, Miguel Cabrera wouldn't be on the team. And if they were, the Nationals would have one player that I'd ever even heard of. And so, yeah, we did not beat either of those really bad teams. So it's still a bad week, but there are a couple of bright lights in there.
Yeah, in my mind, they didn't look, if we're using the eye test, the Royals didn't look any worse than they normally do this week. Some things didn't end up breaking their way, and they ended up losing 2 of 4 instead of 3 of 3 or what, or 3, or they ended up losing 4 of 6 instead of 3 of 6 or something like that. But, those things turn on like a random thing, right? You mentioned the Bobby Witt Jr. at bat today. I want to talk a little bit about just that at bat because you're right. Today was an interesting example for Bobby Witt Jr. because he had what I would say were like 2 really good plate appearances to start the day and then 2 bad ones to end the day. And we mentioned a couple episodes ago that the difference for Bobby Witt Jr. will be when he stops having 1 good plate appearance a game and starts having 3 or 4 good plate appearances a game. Then those numbers will start to turn around. It's got to be a consistent thing, right? It can't be like, I'm sorry, I went up there and swung at every pitch for the first 3 at bats today. It can't be that, right? But that plate appearance he had where he got up 3-0 was super encouraging to me because the 3-1 pitch was a perfect, or he ends up getting, I forget how he gets to 3-1, but he gets to 3-1 somehow. And he takes a fastball on the outside corner that is a perfect pitch from Mackenzie Gore. Not one at all that Bobby Witt Jr. should swing at because it's not in his, prime hitting zone. And it's 3-1. He goes to 3-2 and he ends up striking out on a very good slider down. And
down
that's
and
like,
in,
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I'm fine with that. I am fine if you do that, Bobby Witt Jr., because that was a good plate appearance. It's a strikeout, but you were patient. You got to 3-0. You made it into 3-1, and then you took the pitch you should have taken on 3-1. Good job. If he does more of that, eventually he'll get more pitches in his premium zone and he'll start crushing the ball. If we can see that, we'll start saying, okay, maybe he's turned it around a little bit. Speaking of guys who are turning it around or doing pretty well right now, Mike, who's your strong performer for the week?
I'm going with Maikel Garcia because I think this week showed the Maikel Garcia that we are all hoping can stay around. He was 8 for 22. 3 doubles in a week is pretty big for Maikel Garcia. We saw some higher exit velocities this week from him and leading to extra base hits. 2 walks as well, which you would expect to see from him with his approach. Still a little high on the strikeouts with 8 strikeouts this week, but he also had 2 stolen bases. He had a 940 OPS this week, and he always seems to come up big in those big situations. And obviously will play you a solid defense at third or short if you need him to, and can probably play second too as well, or can play second as well. So Maikel Garcia looks like he's, again, lengthening this lineup and giving the chance to not only be a table setter with his on-base ability, but at times drive in runs.
Yeah, the strikeouts do concern me just a bit, and it seems like you can see that pitchers have a plan against him now, right? Which is when you're ahead in the count as a pitcher against him, you're throwing fastballs on the outside corner. He struggles to hit fastballs in the outside corner, which we all knew he would because if you watch his swing, he actually steps open quite significantly when he swings.
Starts closed, steps open.
Starts closed, steps open. And it can be hard for him to reach that outside corner. If I were him, I would learn how to take that pitch and just foul it off. If you have to just throw your bat out there and foul it off, do it, right? Protect that outside corner in such a way that they can't go out there on you, or they can, but you're going to keep spoiling them until one leaks back over the heart of the zone and you can actually hit it somewhere, right? But yes, you're right. He did have a good week this week. I hope as time goes on and he gets more used to major league pitching, those strikeout numbers will come down, but the on-base ability is definitely helping at the bottom of their lineup. And I'm really, really glad that they got him up, and I'm glad that he's having some early success. And the guy I chose for my strong performer was Daniel Lynch because I just wanted to talk about him. I wanted to get he for his line in the start he had today. He went 5 1/3 innings. He gave up 2 earned runs, on 5 hits with 3 walks and 6 strikeouts. Obviously, you want that walk number to be down more than that. If he has to live more in the heart of the zone, I can live with the guy giving up a home run here or there or some hard hit balls here or there, as long as he's not giving up free passes. Free passes are actually what kill you, because it's those free passes followed by those hard hit balls that lead to runs. And so it was good to see him out there. A lot of swing and misses early in the game today. Those hitters had nothing to do with his changeup. The right-handers could not touch his changeup today. It was great to see. I hope he continues to try to advance that stuff of his, to keep going with the game plan he's got, which is more sliders and changeups than fastballs. And I think you'll see that this is what he could be, a 5-inning pitcher who gives you a good chance to stay in the ball game all the time. If he can just do that, that's enough for him. Let's talk about some guys who can't do that, or Mike, you tell us someone who can't do that right now. That is a pitcher that we signed for some not serious money, but a decent amount of money this offseason. Who's your weak performer this week, Mike?
I had to go with Jordan Lyles because we haven't really talked about him as a weak performer yet, and he's got an ERA north of 7. So it's, you gotta talk about it at some point, right? Jordan Lyles this week had 1 start, 5 innings pitched. He gave up 5 earned runs. And the thing that's killing me, he gave up 3 walks to 2 strikeouts. He was a guy that came in as a guy that didn't really walk that many guys. So this year I had to go back and look. They talk about him as a guy that doesn't walk many guys, but I wanted to see the actual numbers. This year, this is just based on last year. From last year, his walk rate is up 2%, almost 2%. His strikeout rate is down exactly 2%. And so he's now has a 4% difference, plus and minus those two things. And if you go back historically, since he's been a consistent starter, he has not walked at the rate that he walked guys at the rate that he is this year. And so it's very disappointing, and it always seems like it's a walk, and then like a 3-run home run. The guy just gives up big innings right now. I know he's got the decent breaking stuff, but everything else just is not working. The free passes and the fastball are getting killed. And so I know, we expect, we knew Jordan Lyles was a 5 ERA kind of guy, but you thought at least he'd give you 6-7 innings on a consistent basis. Now he's giving up so many runs. He's pitching to so many guys. He can't go 6 and 7. And so you need to see more from Jordan Lyles. Now, the one thing you can say about him is he's made every start, which at this point, that's something for this team because we don't have anybody.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that earlier today. What's funny about Jordan Lyles is he's been awful, and yet the Royals need him so badly.
Right now, if he goes down, we're in even worse shape.
They're screwed. They are so screwed because you need somebody who can go out there, and they're down. I guess with Lynch back, they have 4 starting pitchers now, right? Which is okay, I guess. But who's to say another one doesn't go down at some point, right?
Do they have 4?
Singer. They have
Lyles,
Singer,
Lynch.
Greinke, Lyles, Lynch.
Greinke.
That's 4.
Yeah.
And so, they have 4 right now, technically, but another one goes down. They literally they don't have any prospects for a 5th either. Until Brad Keller comes back, they have no prospects for a 5th starter. They could bring Austin Cox up and just give it a shot, but they know he's not going to do well in Major League Baseball, probably as a starter. I think he can offer some, bulk reliever type stuff or something, but as a starter, I just don't know that Austin Cox really has a future this year, unless something changes. But so Jordan Lyles is at least going out there and throwing innings for them. I will say he was successful until that 6th inning in that start. They left him out there to be the innings eater that he is, and he just got rocked in the 6th inning. And so, it is what it is. Jordan Lyles has not been good, but that's why he's on the weak performer list. My weak performer this week is Jackie Bradley Jr. Oddly, I don't feel like we've ever talked about him as a weak performer, but he's been bad all year. And so, except, playing good defense for the most part. He did misread a ball today that cost them pretty, or almost, I don't think it ended up costing them a run, but it almost did. He went 2 for 15 this week with 1 home run. I think I was at the game he hit the home run at. 5 strikeouts and no walks. It is painful watching Jackie Bradley Jr. try to hit. It is just hard. I can't do it. I can't make my eyes do it sometimes. And so I know he's a great defender. I know, I know he's probably, this is what he is, and he's up there just to pretty much play defense until Kyle Isbell comes back. But he did not have a strong week this week. Hopefully they can start pulling back on giving him playing time since Drew Waters is now back, but we'll see on that one. Mike, it was a rough week, but what sort of theme are you pulling out for this week? Is it a positive one?
It is not. My theme is a question. Are we the worst?
No.
So, like, we do not have the worst record in baseball. The Oakland Athletics do. I realize that they are a team with a just terrible record, and they are in the midst of a Royals-esque losing streak right now. And their fans who were somewhat passionate, some of them are now giving up on the team because the team is likely moving to Vegas. But we lost a series to them, and
we got swept by them.
We got swept by them, and depending on how schedules shake out, they may have played a harder schedule or something than we have. That just like we have the second worst record in baseball, and the team who has a worse record than us swept us. And so,
but they still have a worse record than us, and that's how baseball works, right? Like
I get it, but
they still have
hard
to
watch this sometimes and not think something other than we might be the worst.
We might be the worst. But what's funny is and this your theme kind of melds into mine interestingly because the Royals lose a lot of games, right? And what's interesting is when I watch those games, and I watch all of them, the margin for victory is so small in baseball. One thing turns the game. Two tiny things turn the game. And then it's different. It's over. They've now lost. When I look back at this week in a bunch of games where they lost by 2 or 3 or whatever, I'm like, man, the difference in those games is one tiny decision, one tiny play, one tiny thing. What's interesting to me is it's very, very hard to get a team from where the Royals are to making all of those tiny plays, right? So Atlanta, LA, Houston, they make those plays. Those plays are the things that they do. They're constantly focused in on the tiny things and they do them well. Getting the Royals from where they are up to there is so hard, and yet it's just a couple of things. And it's the difference between losing 100 games and winning 100 games. It's so weird to me in baseball. But this week reminded me of that since they went ahead and lost a bunch of games by what is just a pretty decent inning, honestly.
Do you ever wonder if some of those things are somewhat arbitrary? So all you can do is give yourself as many opportunities to get to that kind of place as possible.
That's
and
the difference.
The Houstons and the LAs and the Atlantas, they just get, because they have better pitching than everybody, and because they can hit the crap out of the ball, they just give themselves a million opportunities to have those little tiny plays. Maybe they are as good as everybody else at converting on those things, on those opportunities, but they just have more of them because they are better teams, because they have better pitching and better hitting. That's kind of what I think it kind of boils down to a lot of times is, if you're talking about 2 or 3 things that turn a game, maybe it's like a big home run. Well, they have more home run hitters, maybe it's the fact that their starters 1 through 5, every single one gives them a chance, where we have 2 that give us a chance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think that's the true in some sense. But what I'm thinking about is it's not that they have more home run hitters. It's that they have more guys who are going to take every single little thing seriously. Every single pitch matters to them. They're not, doing the little thing. Those little things happen 1,000 times a game, right? They happen with every single pitch, every one that you choose to take or swing at, every one that you choose to whatever. When you choose
every time you choose to overthrow a cutoff man to try and get him at home when you have no chance of getting him at home, MJ Melendez.
It's not a choice, but you choose to make the throw, right? It's always those little things. What they have are dudes who focus in intently on those little things, and they understand that those little things are the big things. And so look at a guy like Yordan Alvarez. How many pitches in a game does Yordan Alvarez swing at where you go, oh boy, he shouldn't have swung at that one? How many times does Bobby Witt Jr. do it, right? Look at the difference there, right? Those are the little things. Yordan Alvarez wins 90% of his little things. Bobby Witt Jr. wins 40% of his little things. And that's the difference between the two teams, right? That's a 100 loss team versus a 100 win team right there. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Knapp Family Wealth. Mike, can you think of anything more important than securing your financial future?
Designing dentures for babies.
Is that something you're doing?
Hey, let's keep my business my business, okay? These are
All
my
right.
$1 million ideas.
Okay. Anyway, securing your financial future is one of the most important steps someone can take for themselves and their family, and Nap Family Wealth is ready to help you pursue it. This isn't some big faceless corporation we're talking about here. Nap Family Wealth is run by JC Knapp. He's a huge baseball fan, and he's been helping people plan for their financial futures for 20 years. He can help with retirement planning so you don't have to work until you're dead, education planning so your kids learn to read good, investment management so you get all that money out of your mattress and get it working for you. Don't spend another day thinking you've got it all figured out, because trust me, you don't. Check out Nap Family Wealth at napfamilywealth.com. That's KNAPP familywealth.com. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA/SIPC. During this week's Spotlight segment, the weirdos take the wheel, baby. Every time I think of this, I have an image in my mind of these people who follow us on Twitter and stuff just being like, ah! Anyway, that's right. It's a mailbag episode. We're going to answer your questions and address the things that you care about. We solicited questions on Twitter and Facebook. We got some in from YouTube as well. And you all did not disappoint with the quality of your questions. They are top notch. Probably couldn't get to all of them. I know I didn't get to all of them, but I tried to get to as many as I possibly could. So please, if your question doesn't get answered, please keep submitting. We promise we'll try our best to get to as many as we can every time. Let's start with a question from one of our favorite weekly weirdos, Rupert.
He's an OG. He's been with us for
He's
a
an
long
OG.
time.
He's an OG, original gangsta weekly weirdo Rupert. He reached out in a comment on YouTube and asked, does the team go with different offensive players, Gentry, Lofton, Peyton Wilson, John Rave, guys with patience to the plate, if the current Royals are a hack fest every night?
So I think that's going to be one of the great indicators of if this front office is different from the last front office. The last front office would stay with these guys hacking, looking at, oh, well, what are their traditional numbers and all that sort of stuff. And they'd stick with them for a very long time, a la why Hunter Dozier was still on the team. If this new regime, this new front office truly appreciates guys that have more advanced approaches and are really changing it up, then they won't stick with those guys nearly as long. Now, it's kind of weird because they're stuck with the guys that they have. They didn't get to choose these guys. They're the guys that are there. They were the guys that were on the 40-man when they adopted it, all that sort of stuff. And so you're kind of looking for that. But if you start to see guys like a Gentry, a Lofton, John Raves the same way, if you start to see them coming up and those other guys either going down or getting released or not getting as much playing time, then you'll know that this front office is different than the last one.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, I think you will start to see those other guys. I think this is why having depth is so important. It's because when a guy doesn't work out, you have another guy behind him, right? So one of the reasons a lot of Royals commentariat of the Royal, I'm going to make that, yeah. A lot of the Royals commentariat isn't as worried about the offense as they are the pitching, is because there are guys in the minor leagues ready to take the places of underperforming players at the major league level. Gentry, Rupert mentions a lot of them. Gentry, Lofton, Wilson, Rave, Logan Porter, other guys. There are hitters coming up who will have the potential to take spots from underperforming major league players. The Royals created this hitting pipeline by hiring Drew Saylor and Alex Zumwalt and all those guys back in 2019. They're hoping that the pitching development as it's changed this year will provide the exact same thing for the pitching. That if guys are underperforming at the major league level, they can turn to guys at AAA and AA and that sort of thing. Right now, that depth is not there for the pitching, but it is there for the hitting. And so if guys like, I hate to say Bobby Witt Jr., but it may be Bobby Witt Jr., but some others too, right? Like
MJ Melendez
is not really MJ Melendez. Yeah. If guys like this aren't performing, maybe they're not too long for the major league roster. Maybe they get a little switcheroo with Nick Lofton or with a Tyler Gentry or something like that. Thank you, Rupert, for that question. Really appreciate it. Next question comes in from Eli Nitz on Twitter. He wants to know who do we think the next position player called up making their MLB debut will be?
Well, Eli, Mark stole my guy. And so I'll have to go with my number 2 choice here. I'm going with Logan Porter. And more, this is more with my heart because I want to see Logan Porter. That's why we watched a lot of spring training this year in person and on well, didn't watch a whole lot of it on TV, but listened to it and things like that. Um, and I loved what I saw from Logan Porter down there. He's a catcher, but he also plays some first. Um, you could DH, you know. I'm just interested to see he's like a 27 or 28 years old. He needs an opportunity in Major League Baseball, and I would like to see how he handles the pitching in Major League Baseball. Honestly, now that's more with my heart. Okay, my head says somebody else, but you're going to talk about that guy. The one thing I will talk, the dark horse kind of. Here's my dark horse guy, Dairon Blanco, because of his ability to play outfield, and he's an older prospect as well. But I only see that happening if there's like another Waters injury or Isbell is injured for longer, and they just don't want to keep putting Jackie Bradley Jr. out there to hit. I could see Blanco getting the call up as well. The big problem with Porter and Blanco, neither one of them are on the 40 man, and so you would have to do something to get them on the 40 man, or I guess somebody would have to go on the IL or something like that.
One thing that might make room for them or a Samad Taylor, who I'm going to talk about, is when Nicky Lopez might get traded during this season. He's a 40-man spot. You might see something like that happen. Or if, somebody else in the position player pool gets traded. Obviously, at some point, Jackie Bradley Jr. will get cut. Just depends. Actually, I really like your dark horse pick. I think Dairon, if you ask me who deserves to be the next guy called up, I would say Dairon Blanco. Now, he's not on the 40-man, and that complicates things. But he has played so well in AAA, so well. The guy I'm going to talk about, Samad Taylor, has also played very well. He has a leg up in part because he has some position versatility. He is on the 40-man. He's not a high walk rate guy, but he does not strike out that much either. And so, well, when I say that, okay, I think he's striking out at like 15%, but also walking at like, I'm going to have to check this now because I'm going to get mad at myself for getting these numbers wrong. Samad Taylor, I was a little worried about his swing and miss, but right now he's only striking out at 19.6%, but he's walking at 13.4%. He's got a 364 batting average on balls in play, but really he's doing quite well. And we saw him a lot in spring training too. A real spark plug, a real guy who's going to create a lot of chaos on the bases, use his athleticism. And so, yeah, I'm ready for Samad Taylor to come up right now, honestly. And so we'll see on him. But if I had to guess, I'd say he's the next guy up, mostly because he's on the 40-man roster already, and that makes it easier for him to get up there. Our next question comes in from somebody calling themselves That Guy. So I don't know. I'm tempted to tell him not to be that guy, but that guy on YouTube left a comment with a really good question in it. I told him I'm going to save this for the mailbag. Should the Royals look to ship Nick Pratto? His improvement, I think, shows his potential, and with Vinny on the team, he seems like an odd man out. Mike, do you think the Royals should ship Nick Pratto?
Well, so the idea behind trading, guys, is you want to trade from a position of strength, somewhere where you have depth at a position, and the Royals certainly do at first base DH type guys. The problem is, I like what Nick Lofton has brought, and I think
you mean Nick Pratto?
Sorry, Nick Pratto, yeah, not Lofton. It kind of depends on what you can get back, and this is one of those situations that often occurs where I think Nick Pratto, right now anyway, is more valuable to the Royals than he would be for another organization, if that makes sense. The Royals are lacking in guys that have really good approaches that can, I mean, he's hitting leadoff for them, and he's doing better than anybody else has that's hit leadoff this year. And so, yeah, I don't think it's a situation where you would do that, but I would certainly be listening. Yes.
I'm going to throw out a controversial take. Yes, I think they should trade Nick Lofton if they can get a good value for him. Or Nick Lofton. We keep wanting to put Nick Lofton on this 40-man or on this 26-man. No, Nick Pratto. Yes, they should trade Nick Pratto if they can get value for him. Here's why. Mike just mentioned all the sound arguments. Get him, trade from a position of strength, la, 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 la. The Royals are so pitching deficient right now that they should be thinking about trading any position player for better pitching, right? And the thing that really tips the scales for me towards trading him is, well, there are two things. One, they have a hitting pipeline. And so they have guys like Logan Porter and Tyler Gentry and other guys, Nick Lofton and other guys in the hitting pipeline to help bolster that lineup. Okay. The second thing is pitching is more important than hitting. Okay. It is like pitching is the
Oh
thing
yeah.
that keeps teams in games. It is more important. They should be doing anything they can to get better pitching into this organization at the AAA and AA and even major league level, right? So if they could trade Nick Prado for a guy in another organization, a pitching rich organization who is two or three guys even who are upper level of the minors or maybe major league ready, I think they should be looking to trade him if they can get something worth it on the pitching end for him. Next question comes from a guy named Brian Utt on Twitter. He asks, what's your take on Q's handling of the team? That's Matt Quatrero and the new pitching coaches. Are you satisfied with their handling of the team? Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So first, I think you have to provide context. Think about what they were handed. Okay. So start from that point of view. You can't just go like, hey, well, they're not, their pitching isn't as good as the Braves, so they're screwing up. No, think about what they were handed. And I think when you think about it in that context, yes, I am mostly happy with what they have done. Now, does Quatrero use a bullpen the exact way that I would? No, but you can tell, like, all you had to do was see what Chris Bubich was before he got hurt to understand that things are being done differently. All you have to do is look into minor league baseball to see the turnaround of a lot of these pitching prospects, to see that things are being done differently. See how much rest Salvador Perez is getting, to see that things are being done differently. And so, I have been happy with what Quatrero and the pitching development has done overall. It's not perfect. It's not exactly what I would do, but I think given what they were handed, they've shown some signs of things that can be positive. Now, it's still not good outcomes. Okay. And we talk about this all the time on this podcast. Still not good outcomes, but I do like the process a little bit better.
Yeah. And I just think to myself, like, imagine if Chris Bubich hadn't been hurt, Daniel Lynch hadn't been hurt, and Brady Singer had stayed what he was last year. Do we think we'd be lauding the coaching staff right now? Because obviously the Royals would have played a lot better, right? Those guys got hurt. A lot of that's outside the control of this pitching, coaching staff, and everything. They can't go back in time and make Dayton Moore put more pitching depth in AAA and AA of this system, right? There's a lot they can't do, and so yes, I'm very happy with the coaching staff so far, mostly because we're seeing that the processes have changed and they've changed to something that I believe in. I believe in the notion of like having pitchers try and improve their stuff all the time. I believe in the notion of having pitchers try and throw more pitches. I believe in the notion of having guys with weak fastballs not be dominant fastball pitchers. It sounds simple, but the Royals didn't believe in these things a year ago, right? Do you think guys with weak fastballs should throw their fastballs more than 50% of the time? The last regime did. This regime does not. I'm with this one. Right? Like, I think that's the right approach, right? And hopefully we see some more outcome success. I don't know that we can count on it this year because the talent just is not there on the pitching side. The depth is not there on the pitching side. That's fine. We will have to start pegging, like, when do we want to start saying, like, no, this coaching staff, they need to be measured in terms of wins and losses. I think we're at the very least a year away from that. Maybe we look at midseason next year where we start saying, okay, if they can start winning, Mike thinks we're too well. Do you think we're like start of 20? Do you mean 2 calendar years? Like this time, 2025, we can start measuring by outcomes? Or do you think at the start of 2025, we measure by outcomes?
I'm saying this time in 2025, I would say post All-Star break 2025, because that gives them post trade deadline, really, because that gives us another trade deadline, to another opportunity for those trades, because the lack of pitching talent it's terrible. It's just really, really, really bad. So you have to have time to build those things up, and I know you made some great points about, really in a starting rotation, you change 1 or 2 guys, you can change the whole thing. And that's completely true. but Zach Greinke's not going to be around in 2 years. Not likely anyway, so you're going to lose that part too. That's already gone. Brad Keller's likely to be gone. You may only have Brady Singer in 2 years, or, you hope Daniel Lynch takes a step forward, but we haven't seen enough from that. So yeah, it's so bad. I'm giving them after the trade deadline in 2025, that second half they should be winning games and have a good idea of what the future of their rotation is going to look like.
Very lenient from you. I like it. All right, we'll see. Our next question comes from Chance Winchester on Twitter. Do you guys think that now is the time that we should worry about Brady Singer? He has been inconsistent, so inconsistent this season. Mike, what are your thoughts on that? Time to worry about Brady Singer or no?
Yeah, and not necessarily because of the inconsistency. What's more concerning to me is he seems so hesitant to make adjustments. When your coaching staff for not months, not half a year, for 2 full years has been telling you need to throw the changeup more, and he does not do it, that is a problem to me. Okay, especially when they're saying you got to throw the changeup more, because when you only have a slider and a two-seam fastball, and now his fastball velocity is down, what is he going to lean on? What can he? You're gonna hopefully throw that slider 800. You're gonna be Scott Barlow, try and throw it for strikes a million times. He can't locate it like Barlow can, and so yeah, it's not. Yes, I am worried, but more about the fact that he doesn't seem to be as coachable as you would want him to be.
Yeah, that's a concern for me as well. I think every story we hear about him related to this, you hear about like how he doesn't want additional information. That's like a theme of the stories told about Brady Singer. Is like, he doesn't really pay attention to this or that, the numbers and something like that. That concerns me. Like, I want him paying attention to the numbers. I want him like trying to make his stuff better all the time, right? And they mentioned, he tried a new slider grip, and that's cool. I want him to do stuff like that. But yes, if you're asking like, is it time to worry about Brady Singer? The answer is, of course, yes. And I think part of it is command. And David Lesky had a great post the other day that talked about something he saw in Singer's mechanics that might be a timing issue with his command. And I think, if you make some adjustments, he could get back to that. But the velocity thing, that's already concerning, right? Like, and maybe a mechanical tweak helps fix that a little bit. But, if his fastball isn't 93 to 95, if it's 91 to 93, can Brady Singer have success as a major league starter? I don't know, right? I don't know that he can, especially if he's only throwing it and the slider, right? And so I'd love to see him use the changeup more. I'd like to see him tweak his mechanics to get back to his top-notch command. But right now, it is time to be concerned about what he is. Now, of course, the Royals are a bad team no matter what. And so whether he's good or not good, the overhaul needs to come for the pitching staff. We'll just wait and see whether he's a part of the next one or if they move on in some way.
You know what would be super interesting? and only teams that like are really transactional do this kind of stuff would be like trading Brady Singer this year.
You can't because
you can't because you don't have anybody else to throw innings in the starting rotation.
No,
but
you also can't do that because you're trading him at his lowest point. It makes no sense to trade guys when they're at their worst, right? Like,
but I understand what you're saying there, but if this team doesn't believe in a Brady Singer, and there is a team out there who is willing to at least give something so that you can, that because they think they can fix those problems that he has, you'll listen. But that would be very interesting because those great organizations, they don't just keep Brady Singers around for 6 years doing what he's been doing because he had half of a season of success. They don't.
That is true. We're going to end this segment because we're going a little bit long with a little rapid fire. We had one question asker who took it upon himself. Actually, we had quite a few question askers who took it upon themselves to go ahead and ask like 5 questions. And it's like, okay, well, I guess, but he asked 5 questions that I think we can answer pretty quickly. And so we're going to do a rapid fire to end our mailbag session. Thank you so much to the Weekly Weirdos for so many amazing questions. This rapid fire comes from Derek Lynn on Twitter. We're going to try and answer these as fast as possible. Mike, what's your most positive thing you've seen so far this year?
The improvement in minor league pitching development.
All right, I'm going to go with my number 2 thing because I had the same answer. Mine's the improvement of Nick Pratto. What's the most negative thing you've seen so far this year?
The extreme lack of pitching depth in the whole organization.
I'm going to say the lack of progression from MJ and Bobby Witt Jr. Who on the team would you trade today if you had a magic wand?
Chapman. Just because
Also
I'm worried about him
Chapman, but
getting
I'm going to
hurt.
throw in Scott Barlow too.
Okay.
Who was your favorite Royal from the early 2000s?
This is honestly the question that took me the longest to kind of think about. I'm going with Zach Greinke because watching his stuff was appointment television.
It's rapid
My
fire.
backup is David DeJesus. Sorry, David DeJesus after Zach
No,
Greinke.
stop it. Rapid. You don't even know what rapid is. You're the slowest man on earth. Jermaine Dye. Bonus fun question. Who wins in a fight? Our mom or 1,000 grizzly bears?
I'm telling you, those bears better bring some weapons and an army with them if they want any sort of chance against our mother.
I'll say it's going to be grizzly when mom starts ripping throats.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird week for the Royals this week. If the schedule online is to be believed, they'll play a 2-game series against cross-state rivals St. Louis Cardinals. That's in St. Louis. Then they'll get 2 days off in a row, which I don't ever see, except for the All-Star break, before a 3-game set back here at home against the Colorado Rockies. Mike, tell us about the team with the greatest fans in baseball. They'll tell you the greatest fans in baseball, and the best pizza and the best barbecue in St. Louis. I'll tell you. Tell us about the St. Louis Cardinals.
They are 24-31. Okay, some inner team turmoil.
The pizza is ketchup on a cracker. It's ketchup on a cracker.
You are so right on that. But the first game, we don't have a probable yet because who knows what the Royals starting rotation is anymore. It's more of a conceptual.
No. They announced it before we got up here. They're gonna go with Josh Staumont. Yeah, they're gonna go with Josh Staumont as an opener, and followed by Mike Myers. Yeah,
I gotcha. I think I read that tweet as well. So it looks like Staumont and Mike Myers versus ageless Adam Wainwright, and he's not actually ageless. He's 41 years old and a 6.33 ERA with a 1.59 WHIP. Okay, I love that he's a sinker, curveball cutter guy, and for his sinker, Mark just wrote basically rolling them up there. They're going so slow. He's just rolling them up there. He's been known for his curveball for a long time, has a great curveball, but the sinker is getting hit very well this year, so hopefully we can hit that sinker. Game 2 will give us Zach Greinke versus Miles Mikolas, a 34-year-old righty out of Nova Southeastern. Never heard of that one. 4.23 ERA, 1.39 WHIP. He's a sinker pitcher as well, 92-93 with the sinker. He does throw a 4-seam fastball as well, a slider and a curveball. Kind of switched from the 4-seamer to the sinker more this year. The Cardinals are getting strong offensive years out of Paul Goldschmidt, Paul DeJong, and Nolan Gorman, super prospect Nolan Gorman. And so, yeah, that'll be the Cardinals series. Hopefully we can take both games and rub it right in their face. Just like that awful
People
pizza
forget
and crappy
Gorman
barbecue.
could have been. Oh, it's gross. It's so gross. People forget Gorman could have been a Royal, right?
Yeah.
Do you know who they took? Do you remember who they took instead?
Oh, that was the year. Was that the Brady Singer year?
Yes, Brady Singer.
Okay,
They took Brady Singer instead of Nolan Gorman. And we'll see how that's going to work out. After the 2 games in St. Louis, they get a couple of days to relax, I guess. Just hang out, maybe go to Oceans of Fun or something. I'm not really sure. And then they'll be here against the Colorado Rockies, who are 24-30 on the year. They only have 2 guys above league average in terms of OPS plus. So not doing great offensively, which you typically associate with Rockies baseball. They're very easy park to hit in. But Elias Diaz and Charlie Blackmon both have pretty good offensive seasons going for the Rockies. On the pitching side, it is brutal, as it normally is, for pitchers in Coors Field. Kyle Freeland is the only starter with an ERA under 4.90. He's having a good year. They have a couple injured starters as well. So like the Royals, they're trying to patch together a rotation for right now. But we'll see if the Royals have a chance to take some games from them when they come to Kansas City. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with our Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Michael James Mead. Sorry, I said your full name again because it creeps you out.
Why don't you just throw mom's maiden name out there too, huh?
It's Blahailovich for all you need to know. By the way, tell us about what you've been up to for the last week.
Well, so my just a bit outside this week is more of a concept, and it's the I'm too old for this shit stuff. So like, I very got my I'm too old for this shit realization moment on Friday because you and I went golfing on Friday, and when we got back, I asked you to move a ladder. I have this big heavy ladder, and I needed to put it up on my deck, and so I asked him to help me carry it up to the deck because it's super heavy. I didn't want to do it by myself, and then he left. Well, I was going up there to get on my roof to kind of inspect some stuff on my roof. And that's when I very much realized that I am too old to be getting on my roof anymore. Because I got up there and I was like, well, I'm definitely falling off this motherfucker. I mean, I'm gone. I'm definitely falling off this thing. I'm going to die. Okay. And so I told my wife, I'm like, hey, the thing you want me to do, I can't do up here, not physically and stay on the roof at the same time. And so Tuesday, I'll be calling some roofing people because I'm just too old for it. I can't do it. So, yeah.
Hey, man, that's a young man's game. Let's not be a hero
And
up
you and
there.
I
You know,
used
you
to
got
get
a
up on
kid
the roof
now.
on
You
our
don't want
old
to,
house all the time and do
when
stuff.
I was a kid, I'd get up there for funsies, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm not, it's a life or death situation now. I'm not doing that, you know, like I'm not bendy anymore. If I fall,
Mm-mm.
that's it. That's the end of me. And so, yeah, I don't get on the roof anymore. My partner is 9 years younger than me. And to her, she's like, yeah, let's get on the roof. No big deal. I'm like, no, it's a big deal. Okay. It's a big deal. All right. Um, yeah. Anyway, I'm talking about a TV show that I started watching that is hilarious. Mike, have you ever seen I Think You Should Leave?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this show is not I Think You Should Leave, but it's by the same guy who does I Think You Should Leave and his comedy partner, basically, who's also in I Think You Should Leave. This show is called Detroiters. It stars Tim Robinson and Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson, I think is his last name. And it's about these two guys who are like best friends, and the two actors are like best friends in real life too. And they run like an ad agency in Detroit, and they make like crappy local commercials is the whole thing, right? Like, and it's if you like Tim Robinson's humor, it's basically like I Think You Should Leave, but it's not sketches, but you can kind of see these like little set piece sketches. Kind of, it was produced a few years ago, before I Think You Should Leave started. It only got 2 seasons on Comedy Central, but you can like see the outlines of what would become I Think You Should Leave later. And it's just really, really funny. It's kind of insane and cringy at times, but it's totally their humor. If you've ever seen that other show, which is much more popular than I think Detroiters was, but also produced by Jason Sudeikis, and he's in a couple episodes as well. And so if you get a chance and you want to do some laughing to stop the crying of watching Royals baseball, watch some Detroiters. It's on, I think, Paramount Plus, oddly, but give it a shot. I promise. It will not disappoint. You know who might disappoint? The Royals, and I'm just gonna be frank about that. But but we will be back here next week, not disappointing you, talking about the Royals. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.